Alright. Tariff rebalancing or cost distribution between different categories of consumer. So if let's say after a few years, they found out that inflation is significant, they need to revise the tariff. So they want to maybe do some tariff rebalancing lah, to reflect the cost of inflation and cost of distribution between categories of consumer lah. Tapi typically this one tak nombor, tapi cost distribution ni typically will affect the industrial operators much more lah compared to our home user. Sebab home user kalau dia buat tarif ni pun is just a few cents. Tapi when you're talking about industrial or consumer commercial usage, then that will be different because they are using quite hefty lah compared to domestic user. And then reasonable return of rate to the utilities. Return rate ni again inflation lah basically. Nak cover inflation. Supports to certain sectors to catalyze economic growth. So let's say for example the current government wants to increase the renewable energy incorporation in domestic users. So to support that, of course they will give a very attractive rate lah for to operate the renewable energy or to install or to buy from the independent user, domestic user, their excess electricity bill. So akan reflect lah dekat electricity tarif tu. And then to impact social economy of consumers. Ni lebih kepada nak targeted B40 lah. B40 because typically every government wants to help you guys kalau B40 ya. Sebab government tak adalah kejam. Mana-mana government pun takkan kejam. Dia memang akan cuba sedaya nak tolong B40, but of course not to the extent that SAP has given money lah. But typically they will apply on someone that is less than 200 kilowatt hours usage, I think. That will consider as B40 level. Sebab orang B40 dia tak pakai aircon typically. So if they use less than 200 kilowatt hours, chances are there will be some special discount from them for them. Okay, ni panjang ni just some justification of why they need to do this electricity tariff. I don't like to read because I know you guys can also read. So I'll just sum up. Basically, the last time electricity tariff was reviewed or change being made is in 2014, and there's a subsidy rationalization program because nowadays government recognize that there's a need for energy efficiency. So that is why there's a subsidy realization program, because all this while back in 2013 and below, everything is being covered. There's a lot of subsidy being covered zaman-zaman Tun Dr. Mahathir dulu. Banyak subsidi yang diberi hasil daripada penggalian minyak, basically Petronas punya duit lah. Kita korek untuk bagi kepada rakyat in the sense of subsidy. Minyak punya subsidi, electricity punya subsidi, air punya subsidi, there's tons of subsidi lah back then. But the downside of having a subsidy is that everyone take things for granted. Meaning, what happened was, lampu tak tutup, electric kipas tak tutup, pakai aircon 24 hours. So, there's a lot of wastage lah being sebab subsidi dapat free. Siapa nak kisahkan, macam awak lah, dapat free aircon. Of course, kalau dapat aircon free, pagi, petang ke malam awak nak on aircon kan. Macam saya lah, saya di office tapi saya tak buka lah office saya 24/7. Kalau saya dah balik, saya tutup aircon. Tapi, sorry but there is a story, ini saya cerita based on my own experience. Kawan saya, bapa ni lecturer, memang dia cakap memang membazir lah, jenis membazir orang. Bukan dia cakap, saya cakap dia tu membazir orang lah. Sebab dia tak pernah tutup aircon office dia, bilik dia, dari dah berapa tahun lah. So bayangkan balik office, dia biar aircon dia buka, malam, pagi masuk, bilik still sejuk. Padahal pagi-pagi siapa orang gila kat Malaysia ni buka aircon kan? But apparently her father is, dia membazir sebab dapat free. Saya punya bilik pun dapat free, TNB yang bayar. Boleh lah membazir. So in that realization, and Najib, I think 2014 was Najib the zaman, and dia pun commit dengan yang reducing our gas emission tu. So they start reviewing all these things. Okay, you guys might think that I am pro Najib because I keep on saying Najib tu lah, Najib tu lah, but no, I'm actually I still remember a few things yang Najib did yang I think is a bit ni lah. Tapi in terms of economic, sebab you have to remember he is an economic background, so he did quite well in terms of economic growth. I'm just stating this fact here. I'm not pro Najib, but I agree with the things that he did when we're talking about economic, because there are certain things that I don't agree with Tun, but I respect him as a person, but there are certain things that I think is a bit bad decision for us as a netizen, as a rakyat, because I am rakyat foremost lah. So I'm not touching about politics that much, but the reason why I'm saying Najib or Tun or whatever is because I want you to see that politician does affect our daily life. Jangan ingat, biarlah, tak payah undi. Buat apa nak undi, nanti sekarang kena kacau aku pun. Nah ni, benda-benda ni dah kacau korang. Zaman tu jangan harap nak ada MRT, LRT semua. Ada MRT, LRT pun dekat KL je. Zaman Najib, adalah benda-benda ni. Tapi, layanlah dia punya perangai apa. Tak faham lah Najib kan. Semua orang tahu lah. Lepas tu PH pula. So, the problem is right now is that we have nobody that has betul-betul dictator. Bukan saya nak suruh orang jadi dictator, no. Yang boleh guide macam zaman Tun M. Zaman Tun M dulu, apa-apa dia nak buat, dia buat je. Sebab semua orang ikut. Nowadays, this camp kata tak boleh lah, this camp kata ni lah, nak bergaduh. Alas, kita rakyat tak tahu hala tuju. That's the downside of having too many head lah. There's no one direction. So, at the moment, I'm not sure how electricity tariff is being addressed. In fact, there's no news pool yet, or maybe I'm not aware of. But at the very least, during MCO, waktu peak end hari tu, Alhamdulillah, they did some prorate. Begini ada siapa tak mute ke? So, typically, if any changes in 24, like for example, in subsidy rationalization program ni, around 70.7% domestic customers are not affected. Okay, yang padahal ada je saya rasa aku affected je 2014 sorry. Kan rumah dia rasa, sebab rumah korang tu typically T20 lah. Kalau M40, B40, chances are you will not be affected by any kind of tariff being introduced, sebab your usage is typically 300 kilowatt hour below lah. But if you're M40, tapi your usage is 500 kilowatt hours, tengok kat bill lah, ada tulis bacaan meter tu, berapa banyak guna bulan tu, jangan nak tipu. 500 kilowatt hours, and you say that patutnya aku tak effect aku M40. Dah siapa suruh kau buka aircon 3-4 biji dalam satu hari kan? Pandai-pandai lah jawab. Jadi, you have to remember, feelings dengan fakta is actually two different things. You feel like benda sama je guna sebelum ni. Kenapa bulan ni mahal? Sebab the fakta shows that you have been using more than 300 kilowatt hours. So you multiply that with the tariff, of course it will be expensive than previously. Sebab you have to remember, RM50 zaman 1990-an tak sama dengan RM50 zaman 2021. So tarif tu kenalah di-review, sebab kalau tak nanti nak bayar all the maintenance, all the distribution, nak make sure no interruption between you and your comfort level with the other people's punya comfort level. So kena be fair lah. So that's why they say kat sini 70.7% of domestic customers are not affected is the F40 yang typically using power not less than 400 kilowatt hours lah basically. So for those person, typically they wouldn't have any issue. Yang real issue, the health issue, yang memang buka aircon 3 biji, 4 biji, 5 biji and almost 24 hours. Itu memang affected sebab dia akan increase dia punya electrical usage. Saya tak sure ni bunyinya sebab saya ke sebab dia yang tadi. Oh ya, tengok semua mute ni. I guess my mic ni pun. Kelas saya seorang je dengar. Okay, never mind. As you can see, no tariff increase for the first 200 kilowatt hours. Typically, B40 tak guna lah. Since 1997 dah, since zaman Tun lagi, tak ada perubahan untuk golongan B40. So, korang still akan tak affect kalau dia kata bil api mahal ke apa ke, jangan tipulah kalau korang kata korang punya pun naik juga. No tariff increase for monthly consumption from 201 to 300 kilowatt hours since 2009. So, macam saya cakap, F40 pun kalau pandai efisien menggunakan electricity, insyaAllah tak di-effect lah. Rebate for government for customers with monthly bill of RM20 or below is still maintained. Maksudnya if kalau korang punya bill SP hanya RM20, most probably tak payah bayar lah. Domestic tariff band is reduced to 5 bands from 9 bands to better understanding of the bill. So dia dimudahkan lagi pemahaman tarif lah, tapi ini domestic tarif saja. So I think domestic, as long as you use below 300 kilowatt hours, you don't have to worry lah about bands. Tapi but never mind lah. I don't think you'll be reaching 9 bands or even the 5th bands pun. Most probably you'll be reaching only the 3rd or 2nd band lah for L40 or B40. T20 tak cerita lah. Saya pun T20. So saya bayar je lah kalau kena. Okay, and then the new electricity tariff setting methodology is based on the economic regulatory framework called the incentive-based regulation. Tak ada apalah, dia lebih kepada policy kerajaan. If you want to understand better, you can just Google incentive-based regulation. Basically, it just wants to promote efficiency and sustainability of electricity supply. Okay, so some key highlight. Lama tak mesti. Sorry ya. I'm not sure. Am I the only one hearing this or you guys also hearing this? But if I'm the only one, then never mind. Okay, for domestic consumer. For domestic consumers, tariff remain unchanged at 21.8 cents kilowatt hour for the first 200 kilowatt hours since 1997. This constitutes nearly 50.4% of all domestic users who pay RM43.60 or less monthly. So, siapa yang bayar bawah daripada RM50 ni, insyaAllah memang zaman 97 dulu pun memang 21.8 lah. So, jangan bising lah. Bukan nak marah bising. Bising tu up to you lah if you want to voice out your rights to the government. It's just that be real lah. Yang kata nak memperjuangkan hak B40 padahal dia T20, dia nak dapatkan rebate yang sama macam B40 sebenarnya, tapi dia cakap lah aku nak perjuangkan B40. Orang-orang macam ni saya melampau sikit, menyampah sikit. Okay, anyway, about 20.3% customers who fall in the consumption band between 201 to 300 will not experience any increase at 33.40%, 40 cents. This is since 2009. So, kalau rasanya bill dia pun tak berubah banyak kalau dia pun, unless of course, if your bill, you use the same amount of energy, but turns out your bills is different. Maksudnya, you use around maybe 257 kilowatt hours, tapi tiba-tiba bill lain. Then there's something wrong with the reading lah. Then you have to check with energy. But if you use the same amount of energy comparatively with previous years and lebih 300 kilowatt hours, then jangan bising lah sebab that's more on your inefficient usage of electricity punya perangai, bukan TNB ni error. So itu bayar je lah. Saya bayar je lah. On average, the domestic customers will experience an increase of 10.6%. So that means there's an increase of $3.03 per kilowatt hours as a result of the 2014 budget subsidy realization program. So it seems not much, but of course, if you multiply it with the amount of energy being used, if you let's say you're using 500 kilowatt hours, that will be significant. For commercial customers, everything has been revised. Commercial customer dengan industri memang dia tak kesian langsung for TNB sebab dia tahu you guys are using that electricity to generate income, not so much on sustainability of life. So dia memang tak kesian lah. So, dia memang naikkan agak signifikan lah. So kalau tengok sini 41 cent to 47.92, an increase of almost 7 cent per kilowatt hours, 16.85%, which is quite huge. But of course, you are generating income, meaning you're using your shop to cater for inflation, to cater for sustainability, to cater for comfort level. So it is a justifiable increase lah sebab you pun most probably akan naikkan harga makanan, harga barang after a few years kan. So jangan salahkan Delhi pula, dia pun nak juga naikkan juga sebab dia pun nak kena tanggung macam-macam. So low voltage commercial customers, they consume not more than 200 kilowatt hours. Ni saya jarang lah nak jumpa kedai yang bawah 200 kilowatt hours nowadays. Of course, if the shop use natural, adalah a few shop yang saya nampak, they use only kipas or maybe natural, they allow more natural light coming in, they allow more air circulation being done naturally. That would be less than 200 kilowatt hours lah. So we'll only experience a maximum of 10%, which is around 8.40. So if your electricity bill is just around maybe rate, even though 200 kilowatt hours for commercial user, the tariff is different. It's much more. Kalau macam domestic 21.8, kalau commercial, if I'm not mistaken, 40 cent or something, or 38 cents or something. So even though 200 kilowatt hours, multiply that by 30 is still significant. Maybe around 500, 400 or 500 lah. So tambah RM8.40 lah dalam bil. So nampak macam tak kacau lah. Ni low voltage. Kalau medium and high voltages, dia memang kena follow lah 16.85%. Sebab dia menggunakan electricity yang banyak. Tapi suruh tak efficient. For industrial, the same thing, 60.85% across the board. And for those yang use less than 200 kilowatt hours, macam kilang buat batik ke apa ke, atau kilang buat batik, itu mahal juga. Apa yang buat? Industrial. Entah, saya tak dapat imagine any kind of industrial that uses less than 200 kilowatt hours. Maybe because I have not been working with NB, so I don't know about that. But typically for low voltage consumers, you only experience an increase in RM7. But across the board, medium high voltage is 60.85%. And to promote electricity, renewable energy, RE, so the collection from consumers, if I'm not mistaken, in 2018 or 2017, if you guys look at your electricity bill, there's a RE fund. RE fund is basically the fund created to collect money from us, domestic users, so that TNB can set up a renewable energy so that in the future, that energy will be relatively cheap, relatively free. But of course, there's also maintenance fee and whatnot to be paid. But if I'm not mistaken, nowadays I can't see that, I guess, because changes of the government, so changes of policy. So as you can see, to enhance the promotion of RE in the country, the government. So everything is about the government. So if we have changed the government to a new one, I maybe that's why I don't see the RE fund nowadays, or maybe I haven't seen the electricity bill yet. But back then, there is a 1 to 1.6% of your total bill need to be paid to the fund basically targeted was to set up by, I don't know, 20 something. Effective of 1st January 2014. So international Malaysia. And 1.6% in Sabah and Labuan, wilayah Pakistan Labuan, except for domestic consumers who use less than 300 kilowatt hours. So I'm not sure the current state of renewable energy because change of government again. So we'll see how. Maybe after this, after that, everything has settled down. COVID has been hopefully been considered as normal flu or coughing, like what I have right now. I hope we can continue with the renewable energy program after that. Because you have to remember, once renewable energy has been introduced, I would suspect that our electricity bill or electricity tariff will be in the cents range. Instead of right now, maybe 21 for domestic is 21.8 cents. With renewable energy, I suspect it will go down to almost zero because it's free except for maintenance and whatnot. Okay, so overview of electricity supply tariff classification charges in Malaysia. So as you can see, base in Malaysia, we have 100% of gas transmission and 75% of distribution is the one that constitute to our electricity bill, that is significant to our electricity bill. And new distribution, this is more on new addition to the generation, transmission and distribution. And for distribution, 25% of new distribution infrastructure via connection charge. Basically, they want to report to you on the amount of newly established cost to the electricity bill. Again, the charges that is being applied to you comes from connection charges, which is TNB distribution, supply commission, paid to the electrical energy provider, and therefore after everything is being done, comes up reflected on your electricity monthly bill. And tariff is based on TNB has segregated it according to the customer category: domestic, commercial, industrial, mining, street lighting, and specific agriculture, depending on government target for the year. And we considered supply voltage. For low voltage is our house, which is single phase, one phase at 230 volts. And then TNB supply for three phase at 400 volts. So typically industrial or mining category will use three phase because they need a very high powered energy supply. And medium voltage is at 6.6 kilovolt has been phased out. 2.22 kilovolt pun dah phase out. 66 pun dah phase out. So tinggal 11 kilovolt dengan 33 kilovolt je lah. What important this number is to you? Not yet, but it's more on industrial side lah. So if let's say one day awak dah kaya, awak dah boleh buka kilang sendiri, then you have to check with that particular with that current medium voltage level punya requirement being supplied so that it can match to your equipment. And high voltage is for those who use more than 132 kilovolt and 275 kilovolt. So, and then we'll look into usage profile. Usage profile is the definition of peak hours. Typically, peak hours will be 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. And off-peak is 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. Why do we need to know? And this goes to Monday to Sunday, regardless of public holiday or whatnot. Why do we need to know this? This will affect your tariff significantly, which we will learn later on. And this is the electricity tariff category. Tariff A for domestic and the others for industrial and whatnot lah. So boleh tengok sendiri. I think you guys can read it also. So take your time to read it on your own time. I guess I'll just show it to you. Only a few tariff cases such as domestic, medium voltage peak, and also industrial, I think, on the other slides. Sorry, hold on. So this is the tariff that you need to know for your house. So if let's say you want to make sure that you understand this topic, try siapa yang ada kat rumah siapa yang tak ada kat rumah tu nantilah bila dah balik rumah nanti minta your dad or your parents statkan bil api to you. Betul tak calculation dia? Of course, ni if I'm not mistaken, this slide was done in 2018 or 2019. So if there is changes, there would be a change because you have to remember 2020 we have prorate data or whatnot. So prorate lah tarif. So this might change to be a little bit maybe or not, or maybe not. It's more on the accumulation of bills. So never mind. But if there is a change, maybe it's because of that lah. Okay, increasing rates by band. So this is the band. Band 1, 0 to 200. Band 2, 201 to 300. Band 3, 301 to 600, and so forth and so forth. But if you recall correctly, just now I've mentioned from 9 bands to 5 bands. So this is the 5 bands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it makes us easier to look at 5 bands instead of 900 bands. Sorry. So it increases as the more you use your electricity. As you can see, the tariff is quite huge, especially when you've reached 300 kilowatt hours and above. It started to go 50 cents instead of 33 cents. Now it's a 51, 54, and then 57. I would typically use my house is around this area, 301 to 600, because during work from home, I normally turn on the aircon at around noon, around 12 p.m. to maybe 3 p.m. And then at night, I like to sleep in air condition. So typically I have to pay lah. But for me, I'm able to afford it. So I didn't make a fuss much about it lah. But for those who think that they can't afford this, try to make sure you falls under 300 kilowatt hours. How to make sure? There are ways actually. If you want to use aircon, you can, but set timer. Set timer maybe at around after you sleep. Maybe if you go to bed at around 10 p.m. At around 1 p.m. 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. turn the air condition off. Turn the fan on. And if you are asleep by then, what you can do is use there's a smart home thingy. I'm not sure what the thing does, but you can invest capital in that so that your electricity bill should be lesser than that. But if not, then try your best to sleep under kipas lah. Then you should be able to reach less than 300 kilowatt hours. Okay. But basically, those typically from B40 will have only 21.8 cents. Quite significant, almost 30 cents different than those who uses 301 to 600 kilowatt hours. So basically, the first band is to protect lower income, B40. And just look at your bill. Maybe there's an electricity bill sample. There is an electricity bill sample in this slide, but we'll revisit this domestic customer tariff a little bit later to calculate betul tak dia kira. Okay, then this is for commercial user. As you can see, the first, even if you use slightly lower, at 1 to 200 kilowatt hours, you have the tariff is at 43.5. Significant, 43.5 compared to 21. 43.5, you will experience it only after you've reached 300 kilowatt hours for domestic. But for commercial, as soon as you turn on your light, you'll be paying 43.5 cents per hour. Bukan per second, per hour. And then as you use more than 200 kilowatt hours, you'll have to pay 50.9. It's not as it's not as expensive as domestic user at 300 kilowatt hours, but still, compared to lesser than 300 kilowatt, this is quite a huge change. And then there's a different set of medium voltage users for commercial. So for C1 commercial, 30.3 and also 36.5. But for those who use peak and off-peak commercial tariff, during peak hours, it's at 45.1. But during off-peak, which is around 10, 12 a.m. Off-peak is, hold on, 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. For those who use 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., you only have to pay 22.4. So I'm not sure club, disco ke apa semua tu, dia bayar 22.4 ke tak. Sebab dia orang normally operate at 12 to pagi kan. So, padan lah. Untung lah dia orang. But I don't think so. Typically club or any kind of disco ke apa ke, they'll use around, maybe falls under C1 lah kot. Sebab apa, dia punya usage energy pun banyak. Sebab they have to cool down, because if people dancing and then you don't have an air condition, oh, nak ke menari. So I think their electrical consumption is huge. So this does not apply to them lah. This 22.4 optic. Maybe, I'm not sure. I'm not the club owner. And then for industrial customer, dia ni memang paling mahal lah. Tapi mahal-mahal dia pun, as you can see, is not to the level of T20 punya level at band 601 and 900, which is at 54.6 and above. So it's around 44. So as if they basically TNB tak kejam lah. Memang mahal compared to domestic users yang uses 300 kilowatt hours, less than 300 kilowatt hours. But compared to domestic user that uses more than 300 kilowatt hours, still industrial punya bill pun lagi murah sebenarnya. But of course, you have to remember they will be typically be using more than 200 kilowatt hours lah. Jarang lah nak jumpa yang industrial yang menggunakan less than 200 kilowatt hours. Okay. And then manufacturing, ni for those yang involved manufacturing lah, ada tarif dia, which is actually quite cheap. But of course, the amount of energy being used typically in a month would result in their bill, electricity bill at around few thousand RM per month. Memang dapat murah, tapi actually mahal sebenarnya setiap bill setiap bulan. And then those yang lagi besar lagi ni lah. So yang ni tak apa baca je kalau nak baca, but it's more on your understanding in the future. But just to show to you that TNB buat kerja bukan semata-mata nak untung lah. They did some justification, and also there's a fact to their figures and numbers, which you can argue, yes, it is in your right, but typically you have to come up with a strong case lah, kenapa salah bacaan ke, or they detect the wrong energy reading ke. So there are certain ways. The reason why you need to know this, because you will want to justify in your mini project proposal later on. If you're talking in the short term lah, if long term, because if you might have, there's a chance that you might open a factory or manufacturing company later on. So these are things that you need to know lah, which will affect your capital expenditure on a monthly basis quite significantly. Electricity bill for manufacturing typically is around 1,000 per month. Okay, for Sabah and Sarawak, they are also using a different set of tariff. In fact, they are much cheaper at Sabah at around 17.5. If you 18.5 if you use less than 200 kilowatt hours. Padahal if you went to Sabah or Sarawak, dia punya penduduk tu bersepah tu, jauh. So distribution ni lagi mahal. But if you use less, tu lagi murah, 18.5, sebab dalam mana vacuum tu, hydroelectric punya tu, so it's cheaper for them. So that's why I told you that the RE fund, if we manage to realize that, this will also become our tarif juga lah one day. around 70.5. Instead of right now, maybe 20 something, it can be reduced to 70.5 or even lower. Kalau our because in Sabah or Sabah or Sarawak, there's only bakun hydroelectric. There's not so much on solar, wind turbine. Malaysia wind turbine tak boleh, bukan solar je. And of course hydroelectric. Kat Peninsula, I'm not sure, if I'm not mistaken, there is a plan back then to build a dam, hydroelectric dam, but it was shut down because of the orang marah lah. And then solar lah, I think the best option for us to realize renewable energy. But the problem is that solar ni paling banyak maintenance. You have to jaga dia punya panel, jaga distribution line, not to mention you have to clear a range of tanah. Hutan tu kena clearkan, pasang solar panel. So that's why I myself is a proponent for nuclear technology. Of course, nuclear technology tu hazardous kalau meletup. Tapi kita kan banyak pulau. Like I mentioned, kalau kita letak kat pulau-pulau tu yang mana inhabitable, and then tarik kabel panjang-panjang ke Semenanjung, I think it's much more feasible lah. Of course, siapa yang tak berani tu, we will always say tak berani lah kan. But I think nuclear is the best way, the most cleanest lah. The maintenance is, apa orang masuk Okay, so this is the tariff lah in Sabah. We'll just brief through, nothing much I want to show to you except for they are much cheaper than us. The same thing, Sabah. And then this is Sarawak, pun cheaper juga, 18 sen. For if you use less than 150, but as soon as you reach 200, 22 cents. So, lagi mahal sikit daripada Peninsula. And then, but then at 300 and 400 and 500, they are still cheaper than our band 3 and above. At around 1.5 pun kalau pakai lebih daripada 1,300. Sebab kita dah 57 something lah. In Peninsula, if I'm talking about Peninsula. So Sarawak residential is blessed lah. Murah lah. Maybe sebab they found out that Sabah tak guna electricity banyak sangat. Sarawak tak guna electricity banyak sangat. Sebab yang typically yang menggunakan electricity banyak ni is kilang lah. So kalau area tu tak padat kilang dia, so rate dia pun, dia nak bagi mahal pun tak boleh juga. I don't know. Maybe they figure out that Sarawak banyak golongan B40 lebut. Okay, next. And then commercial pun murah, 30 sen. Commercial demand 24.5. So off-peak pun tak banyak effect. But at the very least, there are peak and off-peak. Cuma itulah, nampak lagi murah lah daripada Peninsula. Again, industrial practice in industrial pricing in Sarawak seems more or less the same lah dengan Peninsula yang industrial side. Okay, so this is an example of calculation, how to calculate your electricity bill. I think this is the most interesting part lah for us to learn, because you can actually use this part to calculate your electricity bill in your house. So, given an example of 700 kilowatt hours electrical energy usage for a household, for a domestic user, sorry. The kilowatt hour consumption calculation for TMB for Peninsula, typically you can do it like this. The first 200, because 1 to 200 is under 0.21.8 cents. So you multiply that with the tariff, plus the balance, which is ni saya kena ni lah kot. Hold on. This one. Let me select this short. Alright. So we put this a little bit smaller. Okay. Okay, we look at the TNB first. So the first 0 to 200, 21.8 cents, betul. Tambah sebab dia 700 kilowatt hours. So another 100 at 33.4, 0.334 plus, okay, kita baru kira 300, so ada 400 lagi. So now 300 to 600 is at 51.6, so plus, 300 multiply, well, 51.6 plus, and then kita dah kira berapa ni? 2, 5, 6, so ada lagi 100 lagi balance. So 100 balance will falls under 54.6 punya band lah, which is at 601 to 900. So 100 times 54.6, so equal to 286.4. So calculation ni senang je sebab you ada 700, betul tak? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 700 kilowatt hour. But maksudnya how you calculate isn't about 700 kilowatt hours multiplied by 54.6. No, you have to go through each of the band lah. So the first 0 to 200 is applicable for 21. The second 100 is at 200 to 300 is at 33.4 cents, and so on and so forth. So that's how you calculate your electricity bill. At the end of it, you get 286.4. So kalau sebulan bayar 200, 300 range tu, sebab ni lah you guys guna kilowatt hours tu mahal, banyak. Okay, so nak gaduh dengan TNB, make sure point-point ni address dulu. Kira betul-betul. How much did the meter shows? Or if dah lagi best, you install your own meter. And then you boleh gaduh dengan TNB, tinggi langit mana pun you boleh gaduh. Beli meter yang betul-betul diiktiraf TNB lah. Maksudnya meter tu independent daripada China ke mana ke, tapi dia dah lalu sirim apa semua, TNB pun dah approve. And you install it in your house. And maybe your meter luar TNB bagi tu salah. So you ada proof. You have your own meter, you multiply with this, you should get your electricity bill around this area. So memang you smart lah, TNB akan ikut cakap you lah. Okay. And for Sabah and Sarawak, the same thing lah, cuma dia punya lagi murah. So as you can see, if 700 kilowatt hours, if you live in Sabah, it will be much cheaper than living in Peninsula. And the most cheapest is in Sarawak, which the difference is around what? 76.4, kat RM100 beza. 86 tolak 10, around RM100 lah, RM76. Safe if you live in Sarawak. But of course, living in Sarawak, banyak kat industri, you nak kerja situ semua. So kena faham lah dia orang punya nature. Okay, understanding electricity bill component and charges. So this is your electricity bill. And dalam ni is your capacity charges, maximum demand kilowatt hour. And then energy charges for all customer. Yang ini maximum demand ni hanya applicable for kilang or industry yang pakai more than, typically in a month, more than 300 kilowatt hours lah typically. So they have some maximum demand and per kilowatt hours in charges. And then CLC, this is jargon for connected load charge. Basically, ni temporary lah, maksudnya dia letakkan dulu load ni untuk kita settlekan kita punya installation ke, kita punya sementara lah basically. CLC. And KWTBB ni one tenaga boleh baru, basically you have your own solar panel, and maybe you want supply to TNB. So this is the scheme that can be provided to you, so that can be pay you for the energy being supplied to them. And then CLC, PF, power factor is also, what do you call that? Something got to do with industrial packages, where you will be penalized if you haven't followed the regulation, because it shows that if the power factor needs to be at around 85 to 90% efficient. So if you drop more than that, that means you did not set up your electricity wiring or whatever correctly, your machine correctly, or you're not using your energy efficiently. So there will be some penalty there. TNB will detect all this. And then temporary supply, welding and whatnot is more on sama perumahan baru nak buat lah kot. Mula nak buat, nak set up. So dia nak install new generation, electric distribution house dekat kawasan tu. So adalah charges ni. And late payment of course lama bayar, tambahlah penalty. Okay, I think for KWTBB I've already explained, but for connected load charge, this is more technical side, but I think, should I? Okay, kita go through sikit ya. It's only for those customer that has declared that they will achieve this certain amount of maximum demand. Apa benda maximum demand kita go through later. Tapi basically dia kena commit. Customer will sign a form that they say they commit to achieve at least 75% of declared maximum demand. Sebab for TNB to prepare this maximum demand, they have to buy a new transformer, they have to buy tons of electrical power from energy distributor. So if you don't use it, it will be a waste to TNB because they can't store that kind of investment. So they need to make sure that you use that electricity so that they can charge it to you. But if you don't use it, at least 75% being lost. So all those losses will be backed by TNB now. So that's why they penalize you for that, because you state that you want to use more than 75% of maximum demand defined in a monthly bill. But apparently after maybe sale tak bagus ke, demand tak banyak ke, so production tu pun tak banyak. So end up membazir TNB beli all those transformers and whatnot. So they penalize you. They have the justification to penalize you lah, regardless whether you perform or tak perform. That's more on your side. Siapa suruh tak betul-betul study sebelum make a demand from TNB. But now TNB dah beli barang. And then basically it is done to mitigate risk on non-utilization of asset capacity. Asset capacity macam transformer ni is bukan yang robot transformer kartun. Transformer is the one, saya lupa, saya cakap dengan business school, saya duk cerita transformer. Transformer is the one yang kita buat step down daripada 100 kilovolt daripada generator TNB side sampai ke rumah kita. Kalau direct je masuk, meletup barang-barang elektrik kita sebab dia punya voltage tu terlalu besar, kilovolt, sebab dia orang nak transmit jauh-jauh. So transformer lah yang digunakan untuk receive whatever balance being received in them by the TNB. They will step it down to 230 volt, which is for our home punya usage. Sebab kalau dia tak buat transformer tu, tak ada transformer tu, biarlah meletup barang-barang kita. And transformer tu typically harga dia berjuta, bukannya 1,000-2,000 ni barang, bukannya kita boleh beli suka-suka, memang berjuta. So that's why connected load charge ni dia kena penalty you if you don't achieve what you have stated, which is 850 per kilowatt. That means I'm not sure how significant this is, but 850 maksudnya dia bukannya lump sum lah bayar. You have to pay, bukan lump sum RM50, okay, RM50,000 awak kena denda, tak. Dia be fair juga lah, which is per kilowatt hour being used. Additional ke? Not sure. And power factor charge, macam saya cakap tadi, for medium, you have to have efficiency of 85%. This is 0.85. Ini actually kita boleh convert menjadi 85% lah, efficiency. Or 90% for high voltage. This one is more on wiring, on equipment being used, and also the way you set up your equipment lah. So there's a justification of why, because kalau you tak achieve 85% or 90%, meaning whatever TNB supplied to you, you only use less than that, meaning membazir lah yang lebih-lebih electricity TNB supply, whereby that lebihan tu sebenarnya boleh digunakan untuk orang lain, untuk rumah ke, untuk kedai kecil ke. So instead of dia bagi kat orang tu, terpaksa bagi dekat awak sebab you dah demand, tapi you tak set up your equipment correctly. Maksudnya tak hire orang engineer, electrical engineer je, memang cap sampah punya engineer. So menyebabkan your efficiency drop less than 85%, adalah penalty power factor charge. Benda ni semua TNB boleh detect. Late payment, 33% surcharge of temporary supply ni, kalau kata nak tambah bangunan, tambah power, so inilah kena letak temporary generator, genset ke apa ke, or maybe you nak buat party dekat depan office you want to have a genset to provide you with a air condition bawah kemah ke apa, ataupun nak kahwin bawah kemah ke, ada aircon, so itulah temporary supply, 33% surcharge. So this is an example of tariff C2 customer. So if you recall, tariff C2 is medium voltage peak of peak commercial tariff. So this is a commercial tariff, right? So commercial tariff, dia tunjuk waktu off peak around 10 PM to 8 AM, dia punya usage kurang. But during peak hours, maybe tanya orang datang balik lunch ke apa ke, orang datang lunch, makan kat kedai ke apa, so dia punya demand naik, increase sebab nak cool the area, so you turn on the aircon, you light up everything, and then you use tons of electricity on cooking ke apa ke. So during peak hours, typical lah, you see a jump in kilowatt in use, but then at 10 PM after you close down your shop, typically you need to fridge makanan-makanan daging nak beku kan, so it will fall at around 1000 kilowatt hours. Ni restoran besar lah ni. So maximum demand charge contribute to about 22%. Basically, kalau awak faham maximum demand dekat peak hours ni, you'll be able to save your electricity bill quite significantly, even though you're just a shop. So during peak, 1811 kilowatt. So if you look here, 1811, ni lah kot, around, I'm not sure, ni bukan ni. Ni bagi contoh je lah kot. 1811 kilowatt at maximum demand of peak. At off peak, maximum demand dia hanya paling tinggi, maximum demand ni yang paling tinggi, maknanya electricity bill sepanjang penggunaan setengah jam. Mana yang paling tinggi penggunaan? Maksudnya dia punya kilowatt hours tu paling tinggi lah per setengah jam tu. So it was found out during peak hours between 8 AM and 10 PM, the highest maximum demand found was at 1811 kilowatt, whereby at off peak paling tinggi yang nampak is at around 1254. So kalau kita kalikan 1811 ni with the peak hours punya tarif, which is this one, 36.5, you'll get ni 81,676 ribu 10 sen. Ni hanya 22, and then 24.5, and then pada ni 575 ni apa? Oh, total usage. Total usage daripada awal sampai habis. Yang maximum demand ni hanya one jam saja, tapi when we are talking about bil api, kena kira daripada start mengguna lah. So macam ni 8.30 sampai I would think around 9:30 or 10 PM. It was found that your usage is at around 575 kilowatt hours. So multiply 575 ni during 45.1, you'll get this one. And then off peak tak kira lah ni. Dia kira off peak yang penggunaan 320 ni je, 668. Kalikan dengan 22.4, you'll get this one. So your bill is at 363,546.08. Saya tak menconteng lah sini, kalau berconteng sedap juga ni. Itulah conteng ni sebab dia pakai Google punya ni, so tak bersatu. Tapi basically this one is this one. Off peak punya maximum demand kita tak pening, sebab off peak ni basically memang TNB kata untuk mata je lah, dia nak lebih kepada yang penggunaan biasa je. And then peak punya penggunaan daripada start 8:30 to 10 memang dia kira lah ikut rate 45.1 ni. And off peak 120 yang awak guna kira dengan ni off peak. So macam tu awak nak kira. Yang off peak maximum demand ni again abaikan. Ni lebih kepada TNB bagi tak ambil pusing sangat lah, sebab ni kira maybe time tu ada the fridge tu nak baru nak cool down ke apa ke, tak tahulah. So kedai ni electricity bill dia is around 363. So macam saya cakap tadi, memang dapat murah industri or commercial 45 instead of kalau compare dengan kalau domestic users at 300 kilowatt hours typically you charge at 50 cent. Whereby this one is only 45 cents, but since tengok kilowatt hours dia, this is because kilowatt hours is besar 575. So that's why bil api dia kalau dia guna lebih kurang macam domestik, habislah kedai semua tak nak buka lah kat Malaysia. So 363. So that means during peak hours ni ramai customer datang, bolehlah sepatutnya dia bayar 363. So yang ni is apa nama, frequently asked questions. Apa itu MD macam ni boleh dapat daripada website MD. But basically maximum demand is the single jump of electrical usage in a particular period. Basically in a half an hour punya interval data checking, dia tengok mana yang paling tinggi dia naik, paling banyak naik at the moment. So itulah will be your maximum demand. Because why? Bila awak punya equipment tu pakai the highest level punya electricity, TMB has to cater for that now. So they have to supply to you so that your maximum demand, your machine punya maximum demand, they can meet. So that your machine tak meletup ataupun your production tak stop sebab energy tak cukup. So even though you only use maybe a single satu jam saja, 1.5 jam tu memang sekali je, lepas tu semua bawah, TMB still kena cater for that single jam tu. So TMB still kena supply a certain amount to meet your maximum demand so that your machine tak rosak ataupun your production tak terhalang. So TMB still bear the cost of supplying to you that electricity, and also instead of bagi orang lain yang memerlukan electricity tu, dia terpaksa bagi kat you. Tapi you punya yang lain semua rendah je. So maksudnya dia tak guna the whole everything yang TMB bagi. So that kira sebenarnya penalty juga lah sebenarnya. Tapi the problem is that most probably you are not using an energy efficient machine. So if you don't have the capital to change, then bear with the MD cost lah. Try to, there is actually a strategy so that the maximum demand can be reduced, which is to operate at off peak, or maybe just pasang yang any kind of technological punya equipment yang boleh reduce increase the efficiency. There are tons of it, tapi you have to take action lah, sebab if not then you'll pay the maximum demand. But you have to remember maximum demand ni quite significant juga ni during peak hours, 36.5, even though you 45 per hour. Yang lagi mahal is this one, but disebabkan maximum demand tu you are paying 36.5 buta-buta je, padahal you everything should be lump sum under maybe ni lah. Tapi if you maximum demand tu you put it in the off peak, it will only be 22.4. Okay. So TMB need to cater for this peak load whenever required. Dia tak nak mesin awak rosak, dia tak nak awak punya production terganggu, business awak terganggu. So dia terpaksa provide everything, and therefore kalau awak tak pakai, TMB nak rugi lah. Kalau TMB rugi, nanti kan lama-lama makin lama makin rugi, nanti tak ada electricity lah untuk rumah kita. Ataupun nanti dia bagi ke private company. And you know lah, private company ni dia punya mindset is yang penting dapat duit. Tak kisahlah M40 ke, T40, ke, B40 ke, yang penting dapat duit. Even though government impose certain rule, dia orang will always maneuver around that rule to make sure they get their profit. So you can't trust private company. Macam kat US, their energy company is private if I'm not mistaken. So but of course US dia punya gas is cheaper. So macam tu je lah. Tak boleh cakap apa lah. So this is the half an hour profile pattern. So even though there's only a single charge here, maybe around at 1:30 PM, suddenly your machine is perlukan power yang banyak, and therefore dia increase dia punya load consumption at around 50,000 megawatt for example. TNB have to cater for that, because if not, barang awak rosak, bayangkan fridge, dia baru nak coolkan tu. So kalau dia rosak, habislah makanan-makanan, all the raw ingredient rosak semua, so tak boleh niaga hari tu. Or maybe the whole week. So in order for that, TNB has to cater for that particular search. And if you don't use it properly, habislah. Rugilah TNB. Okay, ni nothing much. Basically, it's just nak bagi tahu MD is typically being sampled at 30-minute interval in a month. And then you have to multiply the usage of the MD with the MD tariff. And it discourage high energy rate to use and to allow to enforce user to use their energy efficiently. Ni for example, let's say during an operation day, typically your operation is around this area, but suddenly at 1:30 p.m. your fridge decided that it wants to cool everything down to a certain level. Ini awak tekan button kat tu nak rendahkan lagi rendah daripada 0 degree Celsius, awak nak put -10. So dia terpaksa lah consume more power at that particular half an hour. End up tak rata lah, maksudnya orang lain semua around ni, maybe around 1000 kilowatt hours. Tiba-tiba kat sini 1500 kilowatt hours. So TNB dah prepare machine and all the energy distribution to meet your 1500 kilowatt hours. Tapi at the rest of it, you only be using at around maybe 1000 kilowatt hours. Rugi lah 500 kilowatt hours tu. If you multiply, you have to multiply lah, kena penalty lah dengan maximum demand punya rate tarif. So, lagi mahal lah. Okay, MD charges for E3 because sama, nothing much to say, so you boleh kira sendiri kalau nak try. This is an example of peak, assume before. Ni sama je kiraan untuk off peak dengan peak. Kalau off peak lagi murah lah. Yang dikalakan apa, hijau, dia ada shades, saya tak tahu shades apa ni. Saya bukan perempuan lah, saya tahu kot hijau apa ni, hijau apa. But the different shades here is the peak hour, the peak punya hours. So that's why peak 67.19, off peak at 77. Ni yang hijau terang sikit ni, off peak dia paling tinggi yang ni. So true ni apa? Oh, nanti lah dia just nak tunjuk cara kiraan lah. Peak hours dengan off peak. So for you to be smart about this is to put, even though awak punya peak hours, off peak hours punya maximum demand is higher than peak, tapi 77.38 kilowatt hours isn't charged to you because off peak ni TNB boleh handle lah, insyaAllah. Sebab kilang lain semua tutup, so dia boleh allocate energy to accordingly, systematically lah. Tapi during peak, everyone pun nak electric energy banyak. So, nak tak nak kena penalty lah. Yang MD 67190, bukan penalty pun, kena charge lah 67.19 ni to meet with your demand. So, for me, if there is a way, try to use your machine efficiently and also try to ambil maximum demand ni. Maksudnya, kalau nak sejukkan awak punya meet tu pada waktu tengah malam. 12 AM or 12 AM till 6 AM for example. Time tu nak pakai off peak banyak mana pun tak apa. Sebab tak kena charge. Tapi kalau awak sejukkan time peak hours, kenalah. Regardless of peak, memang kena. Sebab TNB nak kena susun, kena betul-betul channel electricity ke awak semua. So, banyak kerja dari orang. Of course, when you're talking about high voltage, safety. Bila main dengan safety ni, memang bahaya sikit. So basically, macam mana awak nak reduce maximum demand, you can practice demand side management, maksudnya operating only at off-peak punya operation side. And then if you heard about any promotional scheme by TNB, try to use that, such for example, Sunday tariff Friday scheme, right? Meaning they want you to operate on Sunday instead of weekdays. So take that up. Start your material equipment in stages or during off-peak hours. So let's say you want to start with your fridge, not fridge lah, your conveyor belt for manufacturing. Start it at off-peak, maksudnya at 6 AM. Jangan 8 AM. 8 AM tu dah start peak hours. So untuk make sure, sebab bila starting motor ni, typically motor waktu any kind of motor, kereta ke, motosikal ke, or motor in the industry punya tu, waktu nak start tu dia akan consume paling banyak power. When you're starting a motor, that is when the power is being consumed hungrily by the motor. So if you can increase, you can, whatever, if you want to use or start up or everything, you can just start it at off peak, then it will not be charged to you. So that's how that's what it meant by being smart about energy utilization. So this is an example of your electricity bill. Everything else I think is quite clear, but I guess the one that you need to be careful of is number 6, jenis bacaan. If it's bacaan sebenar, then it is directly from the meter. So if you want to argue, you have to come up with your own meter reading lah, yang dikira TNB. But if it's state the bacaan anggaran or pro rata, because during MCO there's a pro rate terms, then you maybe can argue TNB lah, pro rata or anggaran. Kalau anggaran memang terang-terang boleh argue. Kalau pro rate, yelah, if rasa macam ni kan boleh buat rayuan ke apa, I'm not sure lah, to the new one, so I'm not very fluent on that. And this is the band, first band, second band, third band, fourth band. So this is where you calculate. So if let's say your electricity being used here, for example, in this sample is at, where is it? This one, 730 kilowatt hours. This is the one that you've been using. So as you can see, the calculation is the first 200 is at 0.218. The second 100 is at this one, and so on and so forth. So your electricity bill is at 302. So basically this is T20 punya family level. Okay. Ini domestic, how to calculate, and if there is a KWTBB or not SST lah, ni apa nama? Late payment surcharge. You will be seeing it here in keterangan. So keterangan is this one. So you will see KWTBB, service tax, or if you late payment, semua keluar sini. Okay. And commercial, this is how it looks. There's a lot of keterangan here, because this is what the commercial asked from TNB, so everything is being listed. This is OPTR. Is it different? Or there's no discount as OPTR. What is OPTR? I forgot. Hold on. OPTR. That is this one, right? Oh, this one. Off-peak commercial tariff. OPTR. OPCTR. OPTR, off-peak tariff. So ada discount lah. I'm not sure. Is it cheaper? It looks like no, because of the maximum demand 3,526. Whereby this one maximum demand dia tak banyak, and even though they operate at during peak hours, but their maximum demand chances are is being operated at off-peak, whereby this off-peak is being charged, or because their maximum demand pun tinggi, and then off-peak pun tinggi, so mahal lah. Okay. Ni temporary surcharge. This is basically where to see these charges is being shown in your bill. So you can just have a look in your own time. Nothing much to say. And then time of use tariff. Time of use tariff scheme offers different tariff rates at different times of the day. For example, during off-peak will be lower than peak. This is normal lah, time of use. And enhanced time of use, typically ini kadang-kadang ada. Maybe TNB ada buat promotion ke apa ke, or maybe they want to menggalakkan penggunaan waktu orang tak pakai. So they typically will be introduced during Saturday, Sunday or public holidays lah. So nak pakai, nak manufacture apa-apa ke, try to subscribe for enhanced time of use. And therefore dia akan bagi apa ni lah, maksudnya sebelum ni off peak, off peak saja. But with enhanced off peak, dia ada off peak, mid peak, on peak, mid peak, on peak, mid peak, off peak. So dia macam ada banyak peak lah. So ada banyak kategori. So maybe during this you want to save some money, then try to put your maximum demand at around mid peak. I mean you can't, let's say dah tak boleh nak lari daripada peak hours punya operation, then maybe subscribe to ETOU scheme so that you can at the very least manage around mid peak ni lah. So time mid peak ni can be kata orang lain pun tak pakai banyak mana, so we can cater for you much more efficiently during this mid peak hours. So try to operate your maximum demand at around mid peak, for example. So dia punya tarif pun lain, dia ada ni kegunaan pertengahan puncak mid peak. So dia punya rate murah lagi daripada maximum demand, which is only at 0.333%. Same. TNB discount rebates ni you boleh baca sendiri, but typically for certain industries like institution of learning, government sponsored, typically you enjoy 10% discount lah macam ATM. But for private institution of learning without any aid from the government, tak layak. And training institution pun tak layak. Tapi itulah, dia kata kat sini keyword dia without any aid from the government. But if you recall last few month, even sekolah Cina yang sepatutnya yang Chinese sekolah kebangsaan, sekolah Cina lah, private, Donghua semua tu, tiba-tiba dia pun dapat bantuan daripada kerajaan. Padahal dia private, dapat bantuan 1 juta daripada Lingkuan. And so I'm not sure whether they are also experiencing 10% discount on them or not. Tapi of course kena ingat diorang tu private. I'm not making a racism punya issues ke apa, no. But apparently we do give private institution, government ada bagi institution private aid. Maybe dia nak curry favor ke apa ke, tu pulang lah kan. It's up to them, but sepatutnya private institution tak ada dah, diorang ada their own money. In fact, sekolah diorang lagi cantik daripada most of sekolah kebangsaan dekat Malaysia. So, I'm not sure whether 1 juta tu justify ke tak. And price of worship pun dapat, tak kisah agama apa, typically we'll give them 10% discount. So, yelah, kira Malaysia ni fair lah juga. And off-peak tarif riders, 20% discount nampak tu lagi banyak tu. And applicable for C1, E1 or E1 tarif. And and extra ni lah. Ini baca sendiri lah. This is not so much on for you to jawab exam, but more on whether this affect your future as a business operator one day. So if you think that one day you want to have a business, I think this is a good exposure lah for you to take note. Sebab nanti bila awak macam kalau tengok boleh charge 1 juta ni kalau awak punya kilang besar macam siapa nama Alif Syukri tu, tak tahulah kalau jadi kilang ke dah kan, tapi I would think that his electricity bill for all of his houses, dia ada banyak rumah, mau boleh pecah beribu tu. So kalau boleh kurangkan tu bagus lah. The same thing Sunday tarif rider, working session ni tak ada apa, saya tak nak buat lah ni untuk partisipan ke management efficiency tu. So kita just nak tahu je. But I suggest to you to read yang bab-bab discount ni. Especially you as a business punya owner one day, hopefully. Discount ni lah yang akan membantu awak lah. Daripada maybe puluh ribu punya bill api sebulan, boleh jadi tinggal beribu saja. So, quite huge So, good for you to know. So, I guess in that sense, awak better study juga lah. Okay, any questions? Saya lupa nak suruh awak turn on camera. I'm actually dalam keadaan mamai ni sebab makan ubat batuk kan. So yeah, there's tons of things yang I may seems lost, tapi itulah saya buat batuk mengantuk. Any questions?
Rasanya tak ada, Doktor.
Okay, I've
No, Doktor.
okay. So kalau tak ada, then I guess tu je lah untuk hari ini. I'll share the recording later dalam summary link. But